So welcome back. What I want to do before we jump into lunch break and then more design this afternoon is go over with you quickly some of the patterns that we find in nature. So one of the things that we like to do in permaculture is, as you know, the observation and interaction with nature is to really pay attention to the different patterns that we see and then try to replicate those in our design. So I mentioned earlier that, you know, as humans, we tend to like straight lines and boxes. You know, we do raised beds, everything's in boxes. Our homes are boxes, our cars are boxes, our TVs are boxes, our computers are boxes, everything is boxes. But in the natural world, you don't see boxes very often. But there are 9 other patterns that you do see. And what I want to do is just go through those 9 with you. And we'll just kind of, I call it popcorn style, as we think about each one of them. Just kind of give me some examples of where you may see this in nature, and I'll help you with that, okay? So let's go through these. So the very first one is scattered, not like our minds, although that could be a representation of this. So scattered, for each one of these, I'll try to do, scattered is where it's very random. There's no real rhyme or reason to it. Okay? So I'm going to put down random for this. And we might want to ask how it arrived. You know, how did it get like this? How did this scatter? So this is where my friend Lauren likes to do this. I'll give you a really good example of a scattered design. Okay? That's scattered. Right there, how that landed. Okay? And we see this a lot in nature. Where do we see this in nature?
Wind.
Or dispersal.
Yeah? Dispersal? Yep.
Wind, right?
Wind dispersal.
Yeah, like, I think of example like pine needles on a forest floor, wind dispersal.
Scree field.
Scree field, yeah.
Meadow?
What's that? I'm sorry.
A meadow, the way the seeds might flow. I
Metal.
don't know. Meadow.
Oh,
That'd be
meadow.
the
Sorry,
wind
I thought you were
dispersal.
saying, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, right. But you're saying metal.
Right. No, that's about
Maybe. Okay, so let's move on because there's 9 of them. I want to hit them, but we can come back to these. So there's the first one, is scattered. The second one that I want to talk about here is called naturalistic. Naturalistic, if I can get it all. Drift. Okay. So with this one, there's a little bit more in the pattern where it starts with everything being close together, and as it moves away from some source, it gets more spread out. Okay? That makes sense? So right at some source, doesn't matter what it is in nature, things are on the floor or near it, very close together, and then it tends to go out. Where do we see examples of this in nature?
Oak tree,
Oak tree?
or maybe acorns under an oak tree.
Yeah, think about like what a squirrel does when you see that and you're like, whoa, they had a field day here, and then you see where they left with them, right? I think about this with ant hills. Like if you get to an ant hill and you see all the ants concentrated, and then you can follow the little ripple paths out from there.
I was going to say species density, they're going to be a lot tighter in optimal habitat, and as you get to kind of edge habitat for them, it gets a lot thinner.
Exactly.
Delta?
Yeah. There's another one for
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
good.
that's something.
Hold on to that. I'm going to ask you where that one fits in. But very good. All right, so that's our second one. Our third one that we want to talk about is mosaic. Mosaic. So mosaic is where we're going to take a couple of different patterns and bring them in together. So it might look like you have these little patterns, and then you might add in a second pattern, and might be another pattern. So it ends up creating like a mosaic piece of art. But this is where one, two, or more similar patterns are kind of grouped within. This makes me think of a forest floor more than anything. If I'm walking through the woods and I've got pine needles, I've got sticks, I've got stones, I've got a couple of different things. I can look down and just see the pine needles, or I could just see the stones, or I could just see the acorns, but together they create a mosaic. Other places in nature we may have seen this. Kate might know of one. Where do you live?
Beach.
Beach. Think about a beach, right? We've got sand, we've got shells, sometimes we have driftwood. So a beach is another one. Sea glass. You know, and each one of those has its own unique beauty and pattern to it, but together they create a mosaic. Nice.
This says oak tree
Oak tree acorns.
acorns.
Yeah.
Some of your words, like
Sorry.
And is
Trying to
mosaic?
write. I'm going to try to fit all 9 of them
They're
on here.
transposed.
anthills, and then this.
Anthill species density.
And your A and your I in mosaic switch.
Yeah.
It should be AI.
Yeah.
Mosaic.
I'm not the best speller.
Okay.
I'm a permaculture teacher, not a spelling professor. So
Yeah.
it's not my thing.
Just looking
Yeah.
at a wildflower field, you'd see that because
Yeah.
you'd see there's your goldenrod, and then maybe there's your out there, like for example, bee balm, and different
Yep.
things interspersed together.
Right, exactly. And so the idea with this, as we're going through these, the idea here is to start thinking about the ideas that you've written down for your space. How do we arrange them in a way that might replicate some of these natural patterns instead of putting them in a box or putting them in a straight line the way we
Oh
typically
dear, I
do?
wanted flower boxes.
You can. There's not. But what about within that
Okay.
flower box? If it looked like a mosaic, then one species in a straight line. How much more beautiful would it look like this and replicate that natural pattern? All right. So let's move on. 4. One that I love. I'm going to spell it right. I'm probably going to spell wrong a couple of times, but don't worry about it.
No, if you nailed it.
Serpentine.
Forest floor and beach.
Serpentine pattern.
Obviously, water flows.
Yep, water flows. Examples. Snake, hello, serpentine, right? We see critters that make this. And you know what else too with
A lot of
serpentine?
trails.
Trails, right. Because here's another thing. Serpentine, it's very easy to say that that's the shape because that takes the shape of serpentine. But your serpentine could be this too. It's a squiggly line that waves and moves. So that could be serpentine. Right? So think about water bodies. Think about the way, like if you look down at a topo map and you see the way like a bay or an inlet comes in off of the ocean, it creates this pattern. That's still serpentine.
Do shade patterns kind of turn into these flow? I mean, I guess between a woods and an open area, the shade patterns kind of keep shifting.
Yeah. On like the trees creating
Yeah.
shade down. Yeah, that's a really good point. It's a really good point. And so drawing, again, this is about drawing inspiration from nature. And so that's a really great observation, is that beautiful pattern that the trees create on the ground is very much a serpentine pattern. Probably looks more like that than it does like that. But nice. All right, I'm going to see if I can fit one more down here. Okay. So number 5. Oh, great. Of course, this one will be challenging to draw down here, is the spiral. So the spiral can move, doesn't matter which direction. That way. See if I can start it going the other way. I'm not really good at doing things backwards, but we'll try it. Woohoo! Like that. Yeah. Now, it could also look like, let me see if I can do this one. This is a design that Bill Mollison used to do all the time for spiral. Messed it up there. Forget that little line. where it comes out and goes out that way. So in the idea of this one, like you could plant, see, you could plant here, right? And you could walk in here. So it's like two spirals embedded within each other. Where do we see spirals in nature?
Herb gardens. I've seen
Snail
planted
shells.
in spiral shapes.
Right, so that is mimicking a natural pattern.
Yes.
Yeah.
Snail shell,
Okay.
whirlpool.
Snail shell. Great.
Fibonacci numbers.
There you go.
What? Sunflower.
You have to spell that for me. Fibonacci.
ACCI.
What is that?
That's like that
Fibonacci
Fibonacci
pattern.
sequence, the golden mean.
5, 8.
How about fiddleheads?
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand.
One of my favorites. And people might see this under the next one or two, but actually, sunflower. So if you look at the way the seeds in the sunflower are laid out, they actually go around in a spiral. Yeah. So, okay.
Pineapple too. Yeah.
I'm going to try to sit here, but I can get out of the way. And try to draw and sit down. Okay. Oops. Number 6 is our good old friend, the circle. We see
Also, the
circle.
garlics does that. Spiral. Those garlic things we've been
Oh
using.
yeah, garlic skates.
Yeah, garlic
Escapes.
scapes. Yeah. Exactly. So circles, right? We see circles in nature, but we also see them where they're nested within each other in nature as well.
Like the rings of a tree.
Rings of a tree, thank you. On my first example, I was going to write rings of a tree. Where else do we see circles in nature?
Water surface rippling.
Yeah,
The moon.
a little moon and sun. Yeah. Other circles we want to mention? Some seeds. Sometimes they're not. You know, and I think circle kind of puts, oval shape. I drew more of an oval here than a circle anyway.
Trees.
So you get into eggs.
Eggs.
Well, a lot of like the center of flowers, right before, like right where the petals start.
Yeah.
The stem.
Yeah. Awesome. Nice work. Circles. We got a lot of those. 7 is radial. So this is where we're starting from a center point. Now, radial can look a few ways. It can look like this sort of action, or it could be more curved. Now, we've got a lot of these in a specific, this pattern a lot in a specific place in nature. Flowers, right? Or flowers, right? Starfish is a good one too. Example. Flowers. So think like our asters, our daisies. Starfish. That's a great one.
Spiders.
Radial branching on trees.
Radial branching on trees. Yeah, and I'm going to talk about trees in a moment because
Radius.
I love trees. You can see trees. Reason why I think trees are so powerful, well, there's lots of reasons, is because we can
They
go
have a lot
through
of
a
these.
lot of these patterns and find trees. Yep. Which, thank you, that was a great lead-in, Mood. I appreciate it. Our next one, probably, I don't want to say my favorite. I love patterns, so. Dendritic. So, let me draw it real quickly.
As if on cue.
Yeah, right? So, Erling, what did you say earlier that you wanted me to remember?
Delta?
Delta. Nice. Okay, so this is where we're going to see a lot from our tree friends, right? Because that looks like a tree. It also looks like the veins on the leaf. So we're seeing this is the root system of a tree. So dendritic gets repeated as a pattern within a tree several times. But if you were to look at it from a bird's eye view, you might see a more radial pattern. If you were to cut the tree, you're going to see the nested circles. So you see how a tree over and over again. If I wanted to look at the edge of a leaf, serpentine. Yeah, so it keeps coming up and over again. So we could put tree a couple of times in here, but I think for our purposes here. What's one thing that
Watersheds.
Watersheds. Nice. Yeah.
And there's this difference of scale. I mean, the trunk are wider, bigger than the branches, that are bigger than the
Right.
twigs. But by the same way with water, the tributaries are smaller in feeding into a bigger trunk
Right. So
system.
that this is thicker and bigger. Yep.
Arteries, veins, capillaries. So that's
Exactly.
Same thing.
Yeah, our blood
That's
stream.
where I was going to go. That's the question I was going to ask. You're always like one step. You're like
I'll
saying
shut
what
up.
I'm thinking. No, I love it. But you think about our own system, right? It's very. That's why when I always think about our correlation with trees, that they're breathing out oxygen that we need, and we're breathing out the carbon dioxide that they need. And yet we've got this dendritic structure between us and them. It's really, really cool.
Well, we're very limited in the way we can organize living things.
Yeah.
We're very good at this one.
Yes.
So,
It creates a lot of surface area. Dendritic.
right. Yeah, I'm going to get to that in just a moment. Last one. I want to get to this one, and then we'll spend just a couple of minutes before our break. So this one's fractured. So let me see if I can draw fractured. It's just one example of fractured. Okay. But things obviously have edges. Bark. Yeah. Sticking with that tree. Where else?
Back to Jack's scree field.
Scree field.
Or just rocks that get blown apart by water action or any number of ways.
Yeah. Landslide. How so in a landslide?
Let's say you get a scree field at the bottom of the tucks.
Ah, gotcha. How about dry soil? Dry compacted soil?
Yeah. The heartbreak of psoriasis.
Yeah, I know. Dry compacted soil or skin. Soil / skin. Right?
Fish scales or snake skin.
Yep.
Nice. Hey. I won't write that down, but I like it.
Pine cones.
Pine cones, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So here's the question that I have for you. I want to check on our time. So here's the question I have for you. Over the next 5 minutes, let's have a conversation about this. So why is it that nature uses these different types, these 9? And I'm sure if we studied, we could probably come up with a few more. But why is it? What's the functionality behind these designs that make it work for nature? What's happening here?
Propagation.
Propagation?
Like, for instance, with like naturalistic drift, if the seeds spread too close together, then they won't have enough energy and sunlight and whatnot.
Yeah.
to thrive.
Yep. So there's something there to resiliency, right? Propagation.
It creates connections.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is
Opens.
conservation of energy, maybe.
Yep.
The more
Fine.
efficient way to that the energy flows, or
Or dispersal of energy.
Also,
dispersal,
Dispersal,
conservation.
yeah.
Like,
and it creates space within.
Say more about that. Create space within.
Yeah. So and also flow in and out, access to more places. So more, I've said surface area before, but
Yeah.
also space within. Like, when you have a sculpture, and then they say, they go
Negative
inside
space.
the sculpture space. Yeah.
Like the negative space in sculptures.
Right.
But-
Wait, what is this list that we're making right now?
Functions, like, so what, some of the reasoning behind why these patterns work so well. Why is it that nature chooses these over and over and over
Some
again?
of it's
There's
simple
I
physics.
was just gonna say, a lot of it is just the easiest possible thing for whatever purpose,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
the
Nobody's
thing
choosing
is
it.
providing.
Right, I
So,
don't
like,
think nature does
simplicity.
choose.
Yeah, a lot of
no,
it is
nature
just
does not.
the
This is the way it
easiest
works.
possible.
right. So why does it? Is
Yeah.
the
Because
question.
it wouldn't work any other way.
Right.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
these are some of the reasons why
Yeah.
it's because if we're getting back to the fact, if you went to places that were completely destroyed. I was talking to somebody recently about it was a woman in my class at Omega who lived right where Chernobyl happened, and she moved to this country recently
Is she
afterwards.
50 feet tall?
No, she got out of there just in time. But if you go back to Chernobyl now, the one thing that is thriving is nature. Nature has found a way. Nature always finds a way. So there's something to these patterns, to this resiliency. Something's working. And it's not that, a sunflower goes, okay, before I grow, I need to make sure that I grow in this way. Nature just does it because it works. As we are designing, how do we ensure that the way we design replicates these patterns so that our designs work?
Well, these have come up as the dominant mechanisms by which to do a lot of this through countless thousands of years of evolution.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's all just it's been randomized and run as an experiment, if you will, over and over and over. And these are the answers that work best in their context.
Yeah.
So as we come back and come at it from the exact opposite direction, take the lessons from that for design.
Exactly. And who's to say that there's not going to be more of them,
Oh, certainly.
over time, because it is evolution and because nature is always evolving. There will probably be, as more changes happen on this planet, nature will figure out other ways, other designs that works for it to move